Everybody, Marcus Tuttle with Simplified Home Sales. I am bringing you the second part of Anatomy of a Sale. In the first part, we talked about a buyer that was interested in using a realtor. In the second part, we'll talk about what if you're not going to use a realtor right away and get right to it. You'll have some responsibilities and some paperwork duties, as well as transacting this sale and negotiation. It all falls in your lap. It might be better to be represented by an agent, but not everybody wants to, or the seller's not entertaining representation by the buyer, by an agent for the buyer. So let's just go right into it. I'll just share my screen with you and put on my glasses here and go right into it. Right here, I'll get rid of this. And so in this first part, we covered using an agent, and this one, this not so much. And we're gonna turn this off. So just to recap, see if we can go in here. The trigger for the sequence in business process notation is the desire to buyer, and you got a list of things that might be first on your list, like looking for inventory, educating yourself, contacting a realtor, or contacting a financing rep, and then you might go from there. And later might recognize the fact that you'd like to be represented, but this entails that sequence of events, but we're not talking about that today. That's in part 1 of Anatomy of a Sale. So I'm going to turn this off. Buyer works with a realtor, and just go through this, what you'll be responsible for. This is if you decide that you're not going to be represented by a realtor straight away. And again, you recognize the desire to buy, and this list, it doesn't all have to be done today. It's going to be done in parts, or you're going to recognize the need for it later. But at some point, you're probably going to need to educate yourself, look for inventory, decide to or not to contact a realtor, and to see what your financing options are. And right here, we're going to take this fork in the road. We're not going to be interested in working with a realtor right away. So you might want to start looking for inventory, either going to open houses or looking on the big data companies' sites. And you also probably want to get finance, see what your money needs, what your affordability range is. And then you're going to find an acceptable house. This is a logical stage in your process. And this could take a short time or a long time, who knows. But if you get out there, go to open houses, chances are you'll have some success. And then there's a good chance that this seller is going to be represented by an agent. And of course, this agent would probably want to write the contract for you, seeing how this would potentially streamline the process and not have any other confusion in the way of getting others involved. This could streamline the process, and they can offer to write the contract for you, and you can decide yes or no. And should you decide no, either you don't want the agent to write the contract for you, or the seller is not entertaining anyone that is represented by the buyer, or the seller is not represented by an agent, you're going to be tasked with the responsibility. So you have to answer this question: will the agent represent you? And that's a yes or a no. We're choosing no for this scenario. You're going to need to prepare your documents and review what is mandatory in your state, if at all. There are increasingly mandated contracts and disclosures for state and federal needs, and go into it that way. Prepare your own documents, and this is where we don't know if this person is represented by an agent, or if they are represented by themselves for sale by owner. I'd like to get rid of that. Let's see if I can. So this scenario, this fork in the road is going to dictate whether or not you send it to the agent of the buyer, the seller, or if you send it to the seller themselves. So let's say that you are going to go give this right to the seller, get to the seller's agent. This is the data flow here into the seller's lane. These lanes, these swimming lanes, represent the the buyer, the buyer's agent, which is not in this case the seller, or the seller's agent. So you send your document to be signed or to negotiate to the seller's agent. They are going to negotiate with the seller, and there's either going to be an accepted contract or not. So if there's not, it comes to an end on that property, and then you go back up here and you're negotiating alongside these people once you get this sent out. And was there a successful negotiation? Let's say no, then this cycle repeats. And if you're representing yourself, you go back to the drawing board and find an acceptable house on your own. And if there is, then here's entering the transaction management. But let me just go back here for a second and say, will this agent represent you? So if you decide yes, you're going to allow that agent to write the contract because they're representing the seller, and it's an efficiency move on your part, then you will have them write the contract. So you have to agree that you're going to allow the agent to represent the seller and the buyer, and the seller will have to do this as well, because you essentially become a transaction manager. You snip off a little bit of representation. You can't disclose facts that would hurt either party as an agent, and you really just do the paperwork. So if you're going to have a similar relationship as a relationship represented by a buyer's agent, but it's going to be clipped a little bit because, as I said, you'll become a bit of a transaction coordinator or a transaction manager, a facilitator, if you will, and then it starts mirroring this relationship here, which comes with consultation, a preparation of documents, a storehouse of the info, and more collaboration, working through the inspections, negotiations, and this transaction management would probably be involved. But if it doesn't work out that way, and you do get a successful contract with the seller, you're going to have a accepted contract, and then you become the transaction coordinator or monitor, facilitator, if there's no agent involved. And you need to store your info, and we're going to talk about simplified home sales coordinator, that I'll give you a project toward your success, and communication channel that's free of use for one project. And you're going to need to assemble a team, and that involves ordering inspections, notifying your finance rep, and notifying the title company. And these communication chains will go as such. All these emails or conversations go down to the proper people in their swim lane. So you're going to need to order your inspections if there are to be, notify your financing rep, and notify the attorney or title rep. You're probably going to need to give a deposit. It's between you and the seller. If you let them hold it, this is a negotiation that is pretty nuanced, is going to vary case by case. Then I suspect you'll need to shop for insurances, notify an insurance person, attend the inspections, although it's not mandatory, and attend the appraisals when they go out for the bank, but that's not mandatory as well. And so after these functions are completed, let's see where my thing is. Way down here. I don't know why I messed up. So after these functions are completed, then you will be on your way to a successful transaction. So attend the inspections, it's not mandatory, negotiate the repairs or conditions, and attend the closing. So the essential parts are to make sure that your liability is managed. You need to comply with any state documents that are required, and you need to disclose who you're representing, that you're not representing the seller, and the seller is going to need to perform any lead-based paint disclosures, fair housing disclosures that are required by the federal government and or your state. So you can manage this. I think it's a good service to enlist the help of an agent, but you certainly don't have to. Just need good accounting measures, storing your info, research of your disclosures, state and federal disclosures, performing the proper inspections, and just negotiating in good faith, attend your closing, and then you're finished with that phase. So this has all been part of the anatomy of a sale that you may want to be aware of, and who represents who, especially if the seller's agent offers to write the contract. Just understand that this is an augmented, abbreviated form of representation, and you should be aware of the pertinent facts to the transaction that you disclose to this person, because even though by law the realtor code is to not disclose any material facts or financial conditions, anything that would harm your position, who knows what omissions can happen and errors. So that is the end of the anatomy of a sale if you're not working with a buyer's agent. Please go on Simplified Home Sales or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want further tips and tricks and processes involved in a residential real estate transaction. And take a look at SHS Coordinator. This is a real value and app that I've created to streamline the ad hoc team that's created on every transaction, and to restrict access to who can see your documents, as well as to have a storehouse of communication involved in a real estate transaction. Just keeping it in one place, not fracturing the documents, storing the documents in one place, storing the communication in one place, as well as restricting access for contractors like insurance or appraisers. They can come in and have a communication channel right alongside your important stuff. So that's going to be functional middle December 2020. It's taking longer than I wanted, but that's the way it goes. All right, thanks for looking at it. Hope it's of value. Bye.